on page 12. That's fairly flexible. In my experience of working with outside counsel as an elected official, I come up with that, and then in my experience of working for some labor unions, I come up with that. But things on there such as issues, you may say, look, we want to know, first off, after you do your conflict search, tell us about the negative or the impact in terms from a political standpoint. You may say, let's move that up to the top, so we can move that around. But that's kind of our methodology of approaching your issues. Since you're public officials, I just simply want to say to you that we value your time. And so our proposed fee structures there, it is our intent to learn more about the City of Prairie View building policies to ensure that whether they're practical, we fit into your existing model related to providing those services. So what we propose there's some flexibility in terms of working with you. But as I said on my slide there will be no surprises, and you can look at kind of our approach to making sure we get it to you in a timely fashion and that you are in fact satisfied. From a community familiarity standpoint, we have a certain level of exposure to the city that many others in terms of maybe here, in terms of our references are from local persons who have resided in this city in the past or currently reside here, and that's in our proposal. No conflicts of interest. At this point, we've done the conflicts check, and I don't have a client in this area at this point. Mr. Willie doesn't have a client, and we're coming to the table with a clean slate. Based on reading your plan, we want to be, and we kind of took a look at your website to look at kind of what your broad view is, and we noticed that you all had on there that you're planning to develop a strip center. We also noticed you're planning to kind of establish some relationship with the university. We want to be a part of that, and we'd be honored. And I want to thank you again for allowing us the opportunity to get this far in the process.
Could you explain how the joint relationship would be as far as y'all's relationship with how y'all feel the City of Prairie?
What we've broken up, I would be the principal, and that's flexible. He could fill in for me as well as I could fill in for him. But in terms of the things like the Economic Development Council as well as the City Council meetings, I will be the principal contact. In terms of the municipal court and on appellate work, Mr. Willie would be the principal contact. And so we would cover for one another. And sometimes, for example, today I was on a TRO hearing from 10 to 4. And so I called him. I said, "You're going to be able to make it." So I wasn't sure we were going to make it. He said, "Yes, I'll be there." Fortunately for me, the judge took a minute, and we thought she was going to ask for some more witnesses. She didn't. And so I was able to walk right out of the courthouse and head on over here. Start this way anyway.
What is your experience in working with cities that are home neutral?
You're like the City of Houston. If you look at my proposal, you see I served as a special counsel to their Department of Housing and Community Affairs several years.
You said in one of your packets you talked about in-service training, where it said members of the firm will be available for providing in-service training to the mayor, city council, economic development corporation, and city staff.
Yes.
Will that be extra? Will that cost extra, or is that under general representation or out-of-pocket expenses, or what is that?
That is what we call added value. That would cost you no extra. And I'll give you an example. 1, 2, 3. If you notice on there, you see that I serve as the general counsel to the UMW Scottish Rite in Texas. That's a statewide entity. And so about 3 weeks ago, at no cost to them, we put on a workshop relating to estate planning. I brought in the speakers and the attorneys and etc. So no, that's not an additional cost to you. That's simply to help you, our customer, with issues. For example, I think one weekend, a few years ago, we did one the weekend prior to Grandparents' Day. That was no additional cost to that particular client.
Being that you've been coming to our city council meetings for quite some time, you got accustomed to seeing the good, the bad, and ugly. So why choose Prairie View?
I think, from my standpoint, as I said to people who get nervous about politics and what's going on in the country, I said that's the democratic process. We are a republic, and that's the way it's designed. So that doesn't faze me at all. And again, like I said, I sat on the school board where there were 9 of us. Believe me, we didn't all agree, but the issue was the common interest, and I think all of you have that at heart, and I commend you, that you want to do what you believe is the best interest of your city.
I guess my question would be in reference to retainer. Hourly fee, you have your proposal is one of the highest.
Yes, sir.
As far as hourly fee, can you give us a breakdown as far as the monthly retainer? To be able to fit, so because your hourly fee is the highest, what is the retainer conversation? Several council members asked about retainers because other people have proposed retainer. Do you have that, or is everything based hourly?
No, we can work around that. Again, that's why I said in my presentation what your billing policies are. And we can do what's called budget billing. If you say, hey, look, we think we have an average of X number of hours per month, what I would recommend is you go back and again, based on my experience as an elected official, we used Bracewell and Patterson when I was on the school board. And when we were selecting law firms, since we were so large, we selected a number of attorneys. We went back several years, looked at how long our meetings were going on, got with them, got the staff to kind of sift through it and give us a recommendation. So we're fairly flexible on that, from that standpoint. That's not written in stone. We want to meet your needs because your information is public, so we can pull it and say, you all want to meet X number of days and hours, etc. So we can structure it.
Council? Thank you, Mr. Lau.
You're welcome. Thank you all.
Denton, Navarro, Rocha, Bernal, and Zach. I'm not sure if I got all of that. Okay. Or are we gonna bring him into the, we'll bring him into the thing? We can. Yeah, we can do that. That would be good. Okay, come on up, sir.
Good evening, council. How are we doing this evening? That scared me a little bit. Normally it's scary when I have my back to everybody because I'm a lawyer, and so it makes me a little nervous. My name is Charlie Zach. I'm with the law firm of Denton, Navarro, Rocha, Bernal, and Zach. I brought two associates with me, Scott Osborne and Sarah Griffin, who operate out of our Austin office, which is where we would primarily service the city out of the Austin office. Y'all have my proposal in front of you. For purposes of just informing the public a little bit who don't have access to that, I'm just going to highlight a couple points, maybe address in advance a couple of the questions that I heard asked earlier, and then take any questions that you may have. So our law firm has been in existence since 1990. Lowell Denton started the law firm after he left the city of San Antonio's office, where he was the city attorney for San Antonio, because he felt that he wasn't getting what he considered to be quality legal services from his outside counsel. And so he founded the firm primarily as a boutique litigation firm strictly for local governments. And over the years that has expanded until now, where we provide any and every service that a city or local government needs out of our office, whether it be litigation, whether it be collective bargaining if you're a civil service city, whether it be municipal prosecution, litigation, city attorney, general city attorney services, economic development services, any scope of services that a local government needs, our law firm provides it. We're similar, if you're familiar with the Olson & Olson firm here in the Houston area, they're friendly competitors of ours. They come down and compete against us in our area, and we come up here and compete against them in their area. So we're very similar built with respect to their law firm. So there won't ever be any conflicts of interest with respect to anybody with our law firm, because we don't represent anybody other than local governments, cities, counties, and special districts. We've got well over 250 years of combined legal experience. We have 19 lawyers in 3 different offices that provide legal services to our clients. One of the unique things, and it's in our proposal that I thought I'd point out, that we have is that our lawyers have life experience before they were lawyers, many of them. For example, Scott Osborne was, not only was he an assistant city attorney in the city of Killeen for several years, he was also director of the Public Works Department. We have another lawyer who was the director of Public Works for the city of Abilene. We have another lawyer who was a city secretary for many years before she decided to go to law school and become a lawyer, represent local governments. And so and finally, which is really Habib Khan out of our San Antonio office, who is a very experienced lawyer, but what he brought to the table when we brought him on board several years ago is that he used to represent developers. And so he brings the other side of the experience to the table when we're dealing with development issues. Habib actually helped negotiate the IKEA development agreement, economic development deal for the city of Live Oak to get IKEA to be placed right there on I-35 and 1604. Now, location when it comes to economic development deals, but he, negotiated the finer points of that deal. As an example of economic development. It was asked earlier, I believe by you, sir, one lawyer, two lawyers, three lawyers, what do you need? Well, we're a law firm, so we bring all the lawyers to the table. Now, sometimes that means you may be better served to have another lawyer do a particular issue. For example, municipal court. You might be better served to have another lawyer other than someone in our law firm do that. The reason for that is distance. We're located in Austin. It might be less, and we all know municipal court is not a money-making operation, it's a money-losing operation. The purpose of the court is to acquire justice and ensure enforcement, and it would cost you a lot more money, probably, than you might be willing to pay to have us do those prosecutions. We're willing to do it, but I think it might be more efficient for you to have a local lawyer provide those services. But that said, we've got a lawyer in our firm who can do anything and everything. From economic development deals, we've negotiated, let me give you an example. Well, I gave you the example of the IKEA deal. That was a big economic development deal. But on the other end of the spectrum of economic development deals for smaller communities, the city of Livonia, which is located just outside of San Antonio, small community, a little over 1,000 in population, general law type A, they didn't have an HEB, and the citizens wanted an HEB. And it turns out they wanted a Whataburger that would come with the HEB more than they wanted the HEB. But that said, we assisted in negotiating a very small economic development deal that fit the needs of that community, that put an HEB right on a large vacant corner, that created sales tax dollars, that created ad valorem tax dollars, because otherwise had been, tax exempt, urban agricultural land. And now that corner has exploded for that community. So we do economic development deals from the very small to the very big, whatever fits the needs of the community. And then finally, just from the standpoint of sort of the experience level we have in litigation, Lowell Denton, he took a case all the way up to the United States Supreme Court where we assisted the city of Bernie, and we were successful in overturning a federal statute as unconstitutional. So we run the gambit in litigation as well as those other issues. So with that sort of broad overview, you have our presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Council? Council first. So you presented a year ago.
My former law partner did, yes.
Well, your firm.
Yes.
Presented a year ago. Being that y'all are in Austin, I guess the same question would apply. How would you be able to get someone if we decided we needed a special call meeting on Thursday or on Friday? How to get someone here in enough time? How would you work that out? And two, one of the things that we experienced, because we had a solo practitioner attorney before, then we went to a larger firm like Olson & Olson, then we realized, are we going to get one specific point of contact depending upon the issue, or are we going to get a rotating person, which does not bring congruency to the conversation and depth of knowledge? So can you explain those details?
Yeah, great question. First of all, with respect to getting here, we made the drive. It took a little under 2 hours, so we just need 2 hours advance notice. So the advantage to us is that we're not solo, so you're going to have somebody. If it's a last second phone call, we've got plenty of folks that we can call on to make sure there is somebody here. All right. Now, let me sort of address it point by point. If I miss a point, let me know. One of the things that we do in our office that you will never see on a bill is that we have what I call a city attorney meeting, and we do it we try to do it weekly. Sometimes things get messed up and we do it every 2 weeks, but we try to do it weekly. And that's where all the people who provide city attorney services to all of our clients, and we represent over 30 cities as city attorney at this point in time, over 8 or 9 economic development corporations, general counsel, or other local districts. We sit down in a room with a Skype with the San Antonio office, and we talk about the issues that are going on with all of our clients. And you don't see that on a bill. We don't bill you for that time. And we talk about the issues that are going on. We bounce back and forth issues and ideas. And the other thing that does, other than allow for us to know it's, bounce ideas off of each other, it allows us to know what's going on with all of our clients. And so that people, while they may not know the specifics, they'll have a general idea of what's going on with all of our clients. And then finally, to address the rotating lawyers coming through the city council meetings. So I'm open on the fourth Monday of the month. And I would be proposing that I would, as the shareholder, that I would be the lawyer that shows up at your meetings on the fourth Monday of the month. I would keep that day clear. I would not have a conflict with that day. I would not create a conflict with that day. An exception, and I might ask you for, I would usually go through the mayor to ask for that, if something came up, which could happen because I'm a shareholder that necessitated my presence at someplace else dealing with another client issue. I can't see that. It could happen, but I don't foresee it. I've got other partners that can also handle issues, but I would propose that I'm the lawyer that's going to be sitting at that table. Now, that said, depending on the issue, I'm going to put the best lawyer on the issue that I have to put on that issue. And that will, A, save you money, because oftentimes it's going to be a senior associate or an associate rather than me, and my billable rate is higher. And 2, quite honestly, they'll probably know more about it than I do, because I'm going to put the person on it that handles those issues on a regular basis. So behind the scenes, you're going to have a law firm of folks doing your work, but at this council meeting, you're going to have my ugly mug if you decide to hire us.
Just for clarification, you say you're open on the fourth Monday, but we meet every second and fourth?
I think I'm available on the 2nd as well, yes. I thought on the website it said the 4th Monday, so I apologize.
Yeah, it's second and fourth.
Okay, yeah, I believe I'm also available on the 2nd, rather, sorry. Mondays are usually, Tuesdays are always bad for cities, but Mondays are typically pretty open.
Council? My last question, similar question that I asked some others about the retainer.
Yes, sir.
Is that negotiable? I don't see it on here, so is there a retainer? So everything's done by a billable hourly rate?
So it has been my experience, and I've been doing this for, this type of work for 17 years. It's been my experience that in the end, it is more beneficial to the client and to just bill our work based on the work that we provide you. We do the work, quality work, we bill you by the hour. That's all we have as lawyers is our time, our reputation, and our knowledge. And we bill you by the hour for work accomplished. I am not foreclosed in having a discussion with respect to, and I wouldn't call it a retainer because the mayor is correct. A typical retainer scenario is you bill against the retainer. I'm certainly not in favor of doing that. In other words, I don't want you to hold your money and then bill against it. But I would be open to having a discussion as to whether or not we could come up with a flat fee arrangement. I have found that to be problematic in my 17 years of experience because normally what happens is that the client has an expectation of a flat rate associated with it, and despite the fact that everyone says, okay, we don't think we're going to go over that, it almost always does, because that that flat fee is usually set lower in order to acquire the business, and then as a result, people end up getting over it, and it just ends up, in my experience, ends up creating conflict between the client and us. My preference is to say, here's the work we did, you can see it, we're billing you our time for it, and if you've got an issue or something, let's talk about it. And if we need to figure out a way to reduce the hours so it is not as expensive, although quite honestly I've found that our law, once we come into play, our fees go down because we don't have to research as much because I've got 19 lawyers with over 250 years of legal experience, and usually we can get you answers pretty quickly. But I'm open to that discussion, but as I'm telling you, it hasn't worked well for us in the past. And I hope that answers your question.
So you mentioned billing for work, so you don't bill for the travel costs?
No, we do bill for the travel. Now, because again, as I mentioned, as lawyers, all we have in our stock and trade is our time, our reputation, and our knowledge. And so if I'm driving and I can enter into a telephone conference with a client to reduce the amount of travel time that I'm billing, we will do that. We do what we can to reduce that amount. And I have also reduced our billable rate for time for travel after normal business hours. The thing to keep in mind, though, is our lawyers, if they're here at your council meeting at 7 o'clock at night, they're away from their family, they're away from those types of things, and it is the time associated. But I have agreed to reduce my billable rate for travel outside normal office hours to accommodate that.
How would you handle, as you say, typically attorneys and other consulting professionals who bill hourly, when they're on the road, if you have an opportunity to either receive a call from another client?
You would not be, so I would reduce, yeah, that does, and I'm sorry I wasn't clear. So the nature of our work, unfortunately, is document driven, so it's difficult to review documents while I'm driving. However, I do intentionally, and so do my attorneys, intentionally set up telephone conferences for when we might be driving during normal business hours. And we would then reduce the time that we're on the phone with that other client away from the travel time. So, for example, if I'm on the phone for an hour traveling here, then you would only be billed for an hour of travel time. We don't bill for both the travel time and then also with the other client. The other things that we do is we set up telephone conferences with the client themselves. Hey, we need to talk about A, B, and C. All right, well, I'm going to be on the road to the city here in an hour or two. Let's have that telephone conversation while I'm driving to help reduce those costs. We recognize, so let me say something, and I always ask usually why do we do this? And by why do we do this, I mean, why do you serve as elected officials? Why do we do what we do, which is represent only local government officials? I assume that the reason why you do what you do is a love for your community and a desire to give back to your community and a love for your government. Believe it or not, that's why we do what we do. We could make a whole lot more money as lawyers if we weren't billing the rates that we're billing for public service. And the reason why we bill the rates that we bill for public service is because we recognize that we get paid from your tax-paying citizens. We recognize that. And we wouldn't have been as successful as we are if we hadn't strived very hard to make sure that we keep your billable rates as low as, billable rates and your bills as low as we possibly can. I would prefer to have a client, and most of our clients we have had for well over 10 years, since I've joined the firm in 2006. And the way we do that is because we provide quality legal services at a rate that is fair to both with tremendous value. Oh, and so anyway, we recognize where we get our paycheck from, and so that's why.
My last question, you said you represent 30 different cities, 8 different EDCs.
Yeah, that's off the top of my head. Don't hold me to those numbers.
But part of that, I think I asked the question 2 other times. We're looking to fill 4 different areas. What is your take on, I'm assuming in some of these EDCs you may represent the city or in that capacity, or you may not. Can you give us some?
I sure can. So the answer to the question is it depends on the client, what the client wants. But that's not the answer. It may be the answer you want to hear. I don't know, but that's not. This is my personal opinion. We represent the City of Dickinson's Economic Development Corporation. We are not their city attorney. But we also represent the City of Schertz as city attorney. We don't do their municipal prosecutions, as you heard. Another lawyer does that. But we also represent their Economic Development Corporation. But I can tell you this, the same lawyer that does the city attorney work does not do the Economic Development Corporation work. I do that for 2 reasons. One, I want to make sure I've got 2 sets of eyes on the issue. I want the city attorney's eyes on the issue, and I want a separate lawyer in our firm with their eyes on the Economic Development Corporation issues. That way you get two sets of eyes looking at this, at the same issue, one from the city side and one on the Economic Development Corporation side. That's how I handle it in my law firm when we represent both the city and the Economic Development Corporation. And I think that's a really good, just think that's a really good approach. Now, with respect to municipal prosecution, it really, quite honestly, it doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't matter one way or the other. I personally believe that, I would love to provide your municipal prosecution services as well. I just don't know if that would be financially efficient for you to do so.
Anything else, guys? Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir, and one question. Unless you tell me no, I see that on the agenda that you were planning on making a decision. I am happy to stay until the end of the meeting if you want me to. I saw everyone else left, but except for these fine gentlemen here. So I just didn't know if you wanted us to stay or if you wanted us to.
Well, we'll be going into executive session.
Okay.
And then there may or may not be a decision tonight. So
Okay. All right.
It's okay if you excuse yourself, no problem.
All right,
But we
okay.
appreciate you asking.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
And for the record, Johnson Petrov contacted me not too long before the meeting, and they wound up not being able to make it, so just so you have their information. We'll discuss it all later. Next item is Mark Gribble. Did Mark join us?
Yes, sir.
Come forward, please. And for the benefit of council and our residents, if you share with us who you are, what you do, and
Of
what you
course.
found, and share with me.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Mark Gribble. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for Gary and Fields. We're a 120-person civil engineering firm headquartered right out of Sugar Land, Texas. And I brought just the presentation there, hard copy for y'all if you want to follow along. Like I said, we're a 120-person firm. We have offices in Sugar Land, we have an office in Austin, we have an office in Fort Worth, and one in Oklahoma City. And the mayor reached out to us after he got one of our marketing pieces, and that's on the next page there. We've done a project highlight on a FEMA flood study that we performed for the city of El Reno. El Reno is a similar sized city in Oklahoma to Prairie. FEMA was going to update the limits of the floodplain, and the city asked us to take a closer look at some of those updates. So we performed some detailed surveying, and were able to prove out that there were several of the businesses and homes that were included in the floodplain initially were actually not. And so that saved the citizens of El Reno lots of money on flood insurance that they didn't need. So the mayor saw that and he got excited. He said, hey, we have some flooding issues. Do you want to come up and talk? And so we went up here for the initial visit, right? And we met with the mayor, myself, and Ms. Herndon in her role as the Economic Development Corporation. And we discussed flooding in areas of Ruby Street, right, just to the east of us, and along Owens Road, and a possible need for a drainage study. All right. So we did a little research, and the first part of doing our research was pulling the available FEMA flood insurance rate maps for this area. Okay. And I'm going to start with some definitions on the FEMA flood maps, right? I've got an extra copy if she needs it.
Okay, yeah. And what this is, Mr. Gribble pointed out, a prior study that had been done in our area that, to my knowledge, at least myself wasn't aware of. So that's why this is sort of important, because we met with FEMA a couple of times talking about paying for a study, and it appears that the study that we would have been paying for may have already been done by FEMA previously. So now we, at worst, be picking up on what was already done and confirmed by FEMA, and then going from there.
That's exactly correct. What we did not want to do is have the city of Prairie View pay for something to be studied that had already been studied, right? And so just a few definitions for everybody. as we kind of go through this. The first is the base flood elevation, or BFE, right? And what does that mean? The BFE is a high-risk flood zone that correlates to the height of floodwaters that theoretically will happen during a 100-year storm. And we've all heard the term 100-year storm here recently with the recent Tax Day floods, the Memorial Day floods, and our friend Harvey that came and visited us last year. It is commonly misnamed the 100-year storm because it's almost impossible in order to have 3 right in a row. And what it actually is a 1% chance annually that a flood of that magnitude will happen. We just happen to have had 3 in a row, right? Unlucky us. So that is what the BFE is, and in the copy of your presentation, it is shaded in blue, okay? The next part I wanted to talk about is the FEMA regulatory floodway, right? And that is the channel or conveyance that holds the BFE and should not be touched by development for fear of rising the base flood elevation and causing an undue impact to others. All right, so, and that is shaded in pink and blue in that hatch. So I was able to pull up these maps and provide them during our meeting, and you see that in the one titled FEMA Ferment. And this is available to anybody on the internet. You just go to FEMA.gov and you can plug in your address and see where, if your house is close to a floodplain. And so we did that for Ruby Street in the area there, and you can see from the satellite image, Ruby Street is inundated in the blue area, and the area to the left and west of Ruby Street is actually in the regulatory floodway. So the bottom line is the drainage issues that these folks are seeing is because they live in the 100-year floodplain and in the regulated floodway. It's as if you built your house in the creek. And it's unfortunate, but that is what we found. And it's readily available, so we told the mayor, there's probably not a need to study that since a detailed study with elevations has already been performed in that area. The next area that we looked at was Owens Road, and you can see that in the research part there. There was no available FEMA study. There is designated as Zone X. And what Zone X is outside the 500-year floodplain. And again, the 500-year floodplain is a misnomer. It is actually the 0.2% chance that that would happen annually, right? And it's a convenient way for us to kind of catalog what those flood events are. So without a regulated FEMA study, and there's no FEMA designations for that area, the mayor did say, hey, there are some events where we're seeing water overtopping the road, which is never good for your roadway at all. And so just from a 30,000 foot, my thumb here, it looks like there's